There's a subtle moment, quiet, often unnoticed, that lives between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Most people miss it. They react immediately, emotionally, letting the nervous system take control, as if there's no choice. But there is, and the Stoic learns to see it. He doesn't let the world press buttons in his mind like he's some machine. He pauses, he observes, and he responds, not from fear, not from ego, but from presence. Reaction is quick. It's easy. It happens when you let the outside shape your inner world. A sharp comment, a sudden shift, a small disrespect, and just like that, you're no longer grounded, you're triggered. But response is deliberate. It's rooted in self-awareness. It's the product of clarity, not chaos. This is what the Stoics trained for, not to control life, but to meet life with composure. Because within that small pause, between what happens and what you do, lies your greatest power. The power to choose, to stay calm when everything inside wants to explode, to hold your ground when the storm pulls at you, to rise rather than react. This reflection is about reclaiming that space. It's about learning to meet life not with impulse, but with intention. Not to react at life, but to respond with life, with purpose, strength, and wisdom. Because in the end, it's not just about how you feel in the moment, it's about who you're becoming. Reaction is reflex. Response is mastery. And that moment, that sacred pause, is yours to own. A rude message, a dismissive glance, a sudden change of plans. Before your mind has fully processed what happened, your body reacts. Maybe your voice sharpens. Maybe your jaw tenses. Maybe you feel that familiar heat rising in your chest, the urge to defend, explain, or retaliate. That's the moment most people lose themselves, not because the situation is too much, but because the emotion it triggered takes over. That's what reactivity is. Not power, but surrender, dressed up as strength. It feels forceful, fast, certain, full of energy. But more often than not, it leaves something behind. Tension in your chest, distance in your relationships, regret you carry quietly. And worse, it feeds a pattern. Feel something? React now. No pause, no choice, just impulse. But the Stoics saw it differently. They believe real strength begins after the feeling, not in the fire of emotion, but in the space just after the spark. A space so small it's easy to miss. But if you can find it, if you can stay with it, you discover something powerful. You are not your reaction. You are the one watching it. That awareness changes everything. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't saying this from a peaceful retreat. He was in the thick of war, betrayal, and relentless pressure. And still, he knew. The real battle isn't out there. It's in here. Responding is a practice. It's not silence from fear. It's stillness from understanding. It means you've trained your system to stay steady. It means you've chosen not to give every situation the power to define you. So when something shakes you, pause, not to ignore it, but to ask a deeper question. How do I want to show up right now? That shift changes everything. Suddenly, the insult doesn't own your mood. The failure doesn't rewrite your worth. And the chaos becomes a chance to stay rooted, not unravel. Because mastery isn't loud. It's quiet, intentional, and deeply free. Very few people regret pausing, but many carry the weight of words said in anger, posts made in pain, actions taken while overwhelmed. Reaction can be costly. It often feels urgent, fast, loud, justified. But it leaves echoes, tension, damage, regret. Response, on the other hand, is powerful. Not because it's perfect, but because it's intentional. It's not about suppression. It's about direction. It's about choosing not just what to say, but whether saying it even serves you. Not just what to do, but whether that action aligns with the kind of person you want to be. So next time the pressure builds, pause, breathe, feel the reaction rise, and let it pass. Then respond, not from urgency, but from clarity, like an artist choosing a brushstroke, deliberate, present, thoughtful, because true power isn't in how loud you speak. It's in the quiet strength behind your choices. That's the way of the Stoic, not controlled by the chaos around them, but rooted in the stillness within. And here's what many overlook. Clarity isn't just a mindset, it's a state. And that state lives in the body first. You can read all the wisdom in the world, but if your nervous system is in survival mode, none of it will land. When your breath is shallow, your heart racing, your body tight and bracing for impact, your mind doesn't ask, "What's the wisest choice?" It asks, "How do I protect myself right now?" This is why most regret begins not in thought, but in tension. The Stoics didn't have the science language we use today, but they understood the truth. Calm is the ground for control. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that mastery doesn't begin in the mind. It begins in the body. When you feel the chest tighten, the jaw clench, the heat rising in your cheeks, pause, slow down, breathe deeper. Regulation is not a luxury. It's the doorway to wisdom and the foundation of all self-mastery. You return to your body. Because here's the truth. Most of your worst reactions didn't come from what happened. They came from how your body interpreted what happened. And that interpretation? It's shaped by your state. You don't have to be in fight or flight to send a message. But if you are, you shouldn't. Because in that moment, it won't be you speaking. It will be the storm inside you. Learning to slow your nervous system is one of the most overlooked Stoic disciplines. We picture the Stoic as someone who remains still in the face of chaos. But that stillness isn't just emotional, it's physical. It's in the breath, the posture, the silence before responding, the choice to move slowly when everything inside urges you to rush. And that stillness, it's not a gift, it's a skill. It can be practiced. So next time you feel triggered, don't start by trying to control your thoughts. Start with your body. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Place your feet on the ground. Unclench your hands. Soften your jaw. Remind your nervous system. There is no danger here. This is discomfort, not threat. Your body will believe what you teach it over time. And the more you train yourself to stay grounded in hard moments, the more power you begin to reclaim. You widen the gap between stimulus and response. You create space for clarity, room for wisdom, and the quiet strength to choose how you show up. Because the Stoic understands. Power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from calming yourself. A calm body leads to a clear mind, and a clear mind makes better decisions. This isn't just philosophy, it's physiology. So start there. Not with abstract ideals, but with your breath. Because every time you slow yourself down, you're not just calming your nervous system, you're reclaiming your presence, you're taking your power back. And remember, time reveals the truth of action. In the heat of the moment, truth is rarely visible. Emotions rise, thoughts race, instincts react. Yet the more urgent something feels, the more important it is to pause. Because time isn't the enemy, it's the mirror. It shows you what impulse tries to conceal. You've probably felt this before. A message comes in. It feels cold or dismissive. Your chest tightens. Your fingers hover over your reply. But now, maybe you pause, you breathe, and in that pause, you remember. You don't need to match the chaos. You can respond from a place of calm. That's real strength. That's what time and stillness reveal. Your fingers hover over the keyboard, ready to respond. But if you wait, just a little, something shifts. Not in their tone, but in yours. What first felt like an attack might start to look like a misunderstanding. What seemed like betrayal may quietly reveal itself as someone else's fear, not your failure. That's the gift of time. It doesn't distort, it clarifies. It holds up a mirror and invites you to see more clearly. The Stoics understood this well. They trained themselves to sit with discomfort, not because they sought suffering, but because they knew. Truth rarely arrives wrapped in emotion. It comes in silence, in stillness, in distance from the initial heat. Seneca once wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." That restraint isn't weakness. It's wisdom in practice. It's the quiet trust that says, I don't need to understand everything right now to act wisely later. We live in a world that moves fast. Instant replies, instant judgments, instant conclusions. But most of our deepest regrets don't come from doing too little. They come from doing too much too soon, driven by fear, pride, or urgency. In that rush, we lose sight of what truly matters. We win the argument, but weaken the relationship. We speak too soon and silence a deeper truth that was still forming in us. We try to control the moment and miss the meaning within it. Time gives us space. And in that space, we don't just see others more clearly. We see ourselves. We notice the stories we were telling, the assumptions we carried, the fears we mistook for facts. And from that awareness, something new becomes possible. A better action, a wiser choice, a deeper version of ourselves, not ruled by emotional weather, but rooted in inner stability. Letting time guide you doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing at the right time. It means trusting that clarity will come if you don't rush to meet it with noise. It means knowing that not everything requires a response, and that some things only deserve one after you've given them space to breathe. There's a quiet power in waiting, because time will always reveal what's real. You won't need to force anything. People will show you who they are, if you let them. People reveal who they are, not in a single moment, but through many. If you react too quickly, you miss the pattern. But if you observe, wait, reflect, you begin to understand. And that understanding protects your energy, your peace, your purpose. So next time you feel pulled to act, pause. Ask yourself gently, what will this feel like in an hour? In a day? In a week? If the answer shifts with time, maybe your urgency should too. Time doesn't lie. It doesn't rush. It simply asks you to stay long enough for the noise to settle and for truth to surface. Let your stillness be your shield. Let your delay become your discipline. Because in the end, the one who owns their time owns their power. And the one who lets time speak first often speaks last, and almost always speaks best. Step back before stepping in. There's always a moment, small, quiet, before we act, where choice still exists. A brief space between emotion and motion, instinct and intention. Most people miss it. They jump in, they speak fast, they push forward. But the Stoic learns to pause, to step back before stepping in, not to withdraw, but to gain clarity. When life confronts you, an insult, a setback, a challenge, the urge is often to react quickly, to explain, to defend, to fix. But sometimes, that urgency is the trap, because the speed of your reaction might not be a sign of strength, but a sign that you're being pulled instead of choosing. Stepping back doesn't mean walking away. It means returning to yourself before returning to the moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, go inward, because only from within, beyond the noise, can wise action emerge. So when life asks for a response, respond from presence. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself, am I calm? Am I clear? Or am I reacting from pride, fear, or ego? If you don't know what's driving you, you may be driven off course. A quick response might feel powerful, but a grounded one is powerful. That's what the Stoic trains for. To insert space between stimulus and response. To zoom out and see the bigger picture. To stop asking, how do I win this moment? And start asking, who do I want to be in this moment? And that shift from agitation to alignment changes everything. Because now, you're not just reacting, you're responding with clarity, with integrity, with intention. That is the quiet strength of the Stoic. Not loud, not rushed, just deeply steady. You begin to speak less, but what you say carries more weight. You move slower, but each action holds greater strength. You're no longer swept away by every wave. You become the shoreline instead. Steady, still, and observant. Think back to your past mistakes. Chances are they weren't caused by a lack of intelligence, but by a lack of pause. An argument escalated because you responded too quickly. A poor decision was made because you didn't wait for clarity. An opportunity was lost because you rushed in, not realizing what you hadn't yet seen. Most of these could have been avoided with a simple step back. And when you do step back, don't just look at the situation, look at yourself within it. Where are you being pulled? What part of you is being triggered? What is this moment asking you to learn? The more aware you become, the less reactive you grow. And that's the quiet strength of Stoicism. It doesn't offer a life free from storms. It offers the tools to stop becoming one. So before you act, slow down. Anchor yourself. Choose who you are before you choose what to do. Because when you master the pause, you begin to shape the outcome, instead of being shaped by it. That's a kind of power no one can take from you, not even the chaos around you. Reactivity is not control. It only feels like it in the moment. But look deeper. You'll see it often comes disguised as urgency, as decisiveness, as self-protection. But beneath it, it's not clarity that's speaking. It's emotion. It's insecurity, pride, or fear trying to take the lead. And the moment you let those forces decide for you, you're no longer guiding yourself. You're being guided by something you didn't choose. The Stoics warned us about this illusion. Epictetus wrote, "It's not events that disturb people, but their judgments about those events. But when you're reactive, there's no space for judgment. There's just instinct. Something happens. A comment, a look, a shift. And you're already deep in it before you realize. A small word becomes a fight. A delay ruins your whole day. A glance from someone sparks a storm of meaning that was never spoken. That's not awareness. That's reactivity. And reactivity is just automatic behavior. Life on autopilot. Emotion to emotion. Moment to moment, without direction or discipline. It may feel like you're standing up for yourself, but often you're just revealing your lack of control. Now ask yourself, what does real strength look like? Because it's not in the noise, not in the rush to respond, but in the stillness before it. It's in the pause, where you can ask, what kind of person do I want to be right now? That's the beginning of choice, and that's where power lives. Think of the strongest people you've ever met. Not the loudest, not the most aggressive or controlling, but the ones who stay grounded, calm under pressure, clear when everything around them is in chaos. Do they yell? Do they panic? Do they snap back every time they're challenged? Probably not, because they've realized something most people haven't. Real power isn't about how quickly you react. It's about how long you can stay still, without losing yourself. Every time you react without reflection, you give a piece of your peace away. You hand it to the moment, to someone else's behavior, to a passing trigger that might not even belong to you. It's like handing the keys of your mind to a stranger, and then wondering why you feel off balance, why you regret your words, why you wish you could rewind and choose differently. But the Stoic sees a better way, not by suppressing emotions, but by learning to hold them without being held by them. Not by pretending you don't feel, but by choosing how to feel without being consumed. You let the emotion rise, but you don't let it lead. You don't chase it. You don't resist it. You let it come, and just as importantly, you let it go. This is where quiet discipline matters. You train yourself to notice the tightening in your chest, the shift in your breath, the impulse to react, and then you do something completely different. You pause, you breathe, you return to yourself. You remind your mind, this is a test. I don't pass it by proving a point. I pass it by not being moved. Because what happens next, how you choose to respond, doesn't just shape how the world sees you. It shapes how you see you. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you reclaim a piece of your integrity. You remind yourself that you're not a puppet pulled by the world. You are the author of your actions. And with practice, this becomes your natural state. You stop chasing every insult. You stop explaining yourself to every critic. You stop rising to every provocation. Not because you're passive, but because you've outgrown the need to prove yourself to those who aren't even rooted in themselves. That's not weakness. That's freedom. That's what mastery looks like. Not loud, not reactive, but calm, aware, and deeply intentional. This is Stoicism, not as a theory, but as a lived daily practice. So remember this. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. Just because someone provokes you doesn't mean they deserve a reaction. And just because the moment feels urgent doesn't mean it's worth your peace. Hold your response like it's sacred, because it is. Responding is a reflection of wisdom. And wisdom doesn't shout. It doesn't interrupt. It doesn't race to be heard. Wisdom walks slowly. It listens deeply. It waits before it moves. In a world that prizes speed and noise, a thoughtful response is something rare and quietly revolutionary. The Stoics didn't just speak of this, they embodied it. To them, wisdom wasn't about knowing everything. It was about discernment, the ability to pause, reflect, and choose, not just react. Every moment is a teacher, every encounter a mirror, and how you respond, especially in difficulty, shapes how your mind learns to see reality. You can be intelligent, but still impulsive, educated, but still reactive. If you can't slow yourself down long enough to respond with clarity, then all that knowledge becomes like a sword in shaking hands. Think about how many regrets are born, not from ignorance, but from haste, from saying too much in anger, from acting too soon out of fear, from defending yourself when silence would have spoken more. Most of our pain doesn't come from what happened. It comes from how we responded to what happened. To respond wisely means you've done the inner work. You've questioned your assumptions, unhooked from your ego, trained your body to stay calm, even when it feels threatened. That's a strength you can't fake. People feel it. They may not know why your presence is calming, why your words carry weight, but they do, because something in you is rooted, and roots don't flinch in the wind. A wise response isn't just about being polite. It's about being anchored in something deeper than emotion. It's knowing that not every problem is yours to fix. Not every insult is worth your energy. Not every conflict needs your involvement. Sometimes wisdom is walking away. Sometimes it's saying no. Sometimes it's just breathing and letting the moment pass like a wave that doesn't need to carry you with it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That line holds an entire philosophy. When someone brings you chaos, you meet it with calm. When they act from pride, you respond with humility. When they try to provoke you, You don't take the bait. Not because you're weak, but because you're not available for their chaos anymore. You've chosen a higher path, a quieter one, but one that's grounded in self-respect. Yes, sometimes it's difficult. Your body wants to lash out. Your mind wants to explain. Your pride wants to win. But pause and ask yourself, win what exactly? What do you gain by dropping to their level? And what do you lose by staying centered? Because if you keep measuring your worth by how often you win arguments, you'll forget what it means to live in peace. And peace, real peace, is a kind of power they'll never understand. Respond wisely, not to prove a point, not to win the moment, but to stay in alignment with who you are. Because if your peace depends on how often you win arguments, you've already handed your power away. So instead, train yourself in the quiet, unnoticed moments. When the email irritates you, when the driver cuts you off, when someone speaks carelessly without thought. Don't just endure those moments. Use them. Let them be your dojo, your training ground, your invitation to mastery. Each time you respond with clarity instead of chaos, you remind yourself, your mind is yours and no one else's. Maybe that's what real wisdom is. Not knowing everything, but knowing yourself deeply enough to choose peace, especially when it's difficult. Your breath is the bridge. There's a small space, barely noticeable, but always there, between the rise of anger and the words you're about to say, between the rush of panic and the first step towards something you'll later regret. And in that space lives a secret, your breath, always with you, always waiting, always offering a quiet way back to clarity. Breath is not just air, it's presence. It's the pause that turns reaction into response. The Stoics didn't write about it in modern scientific terms, but they lived its wisdom. They knew, if you want to master your mind, you must first master your state. And nothing grounds you faster than the breath. When your thoughts are spiraling, your breath is shallow. When fear takes hold, your chest tightens. When anger surges, your breathing becomes fast and jagged. But here's the paradox. Just as emotion shifts the breath can shift emotion. A single conscious inhale can interrupt the pattern. It slows the world down, just enough to help you return to yourself, not the version of you the moment is trying to shape. Your breath is your anchor when the mind begins to drift. It tells your nervous system, you're safe, you're here, you're in control. And in a world that is loud, rushed, and reactive, what could be more powerful than the ability to pause without needing permission? Most people think they need more time, more strength, more knowledge to stay calm. But the Stoic knows, often all you need is a breath. It's not about long morning meditations, though those can help. It's about the micro moments. That half second before you hit send on a message you'll regret. That brief pause before you cut someone off mid-sentence. That breath before you judge. If you can train yourself to return to the breath in those moments, you won't just change your day. You'll slowly reshape your life. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And what fuels that imagination? A mind that's lost touch with the present. A mind that is not breathing with awareness. But when you return to the breath, you return to what is real. And even more importantly, you return to yourself. So next time you feel the heat rising, your heart speeding up, your impulse to speak before thinking, stop. Inhale slowly. Exhale fully. Let that breath carry the emotion out of your body, not into your behavior. You'll be surprised. How many battles are avoided? How many regrets never need to happen? How much peace is preserved when you simply choose to breathe first? It sounds simple, and it is, but the deepest truths usually are. Imagine standing on the shore, watching waves rise and fall. You don't jump into the water every time a wave crashes. You watch. You study its rhythm. You let it pass. Now imagine your emotions are those waves. Your thoughts are the clouds passing overhead. And you are the shore. You are the sky. Not the wave, not the cloud. The moment you truly understand this, you begin to taste freedom. Observation is where freedom starts. It's not about detaching coldly from life or pretending not to feel. It's about creating space, a small gap between what happens and what you do next. And that space, though invisible, is the birthplace of all inner strength. The Stoics knew this well. They practiced it every day. Because observation is not a talent, it's a habit, a muscle of the mind you build over time. Most people live on autopilot. Something happens, they react. A word is spoken, they respond without thought. They are driven by moods, by triggers, by outside noise. But the Stoic watches first. He doesn't suppress or run away. He studies, he examines. And that moment of observation becomes his anchor, steady and unshaken when everything else tries to pull him away. To observe is to reclaim control. It means standing just one step back from your thoughts, just one breath away from your feelings, and asking yourself, what is this really? Is it fear, ego, an old wound trying to speak through today's voice? When you ask, you begin to see through illusions. Not every feeling is truth. Not every thought is fact. Not every impulse deserves your action. This isn't easy, especially in the heat of the moment, when your chest feels tight, when pride is wounded, when silence feels like defeat. But this is where true strength grows, in the ability to say, before I act, I will observe. Before I accuse, I will listen. Before I conclude, I will reflect. This observational mindset doesn't just make you more peaceful, it makes you more precise. More precise in what you say, in what you allow in the boundaries you set. Because clarity lives in stillness. And the more you watch without reacting, the more you learn what truly matters and what simply doesn't deserve your energy. The world pushes you to jump into every wave, to be outraged, to comment, to defend. But that's noise, and the more you react to noise, the more you lose the quiet truth of your own mind. The Stoic remains anchored, not because he doesn't feel, but because he refuses to be swept away. So practice this daily. When the urge to interrupt rises, observe. When judgment whispers in your ear, observe. When emotion flares, observe. Do nothing at first. Just watch, and you'll notice. What seemed urgent begins to dissolve. What screamed for attention fades, and you remain calm, grounded, awake. Because in the end, the observer is not powerless. The observer is free. 9. Stoics act, not overreact. Action is part of life. We can't avoid it. Every day demands choices, decisions, movement, forward or backward. But there's a crucial difference between acting and overreacting. The Stoics understood this deeply. To act wisely means aligning your choices with reason, clarity, and purpose. To overreact means being ruled by impulse, emotion, and the turbulence of the moment. When a challenge comes, your first impulse might be to explode. Angrily, loudly, aggressively. That reaction may feel powerful. It may give a fleeting sense of control or release. But it comes at a high cost. Overreaction clouds judgment, damages relationships, consumes your energy, scatters your focus, makes future decisions harder. In essence, it weakens you. The Stoic approach might feel countercultural, especially today's fast-paced, high-emotion world. It's not about denying feelings or suppressing your humanity. It's about tempering those feelings, delaying the impulse to respond until you can choose a measured action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This was his reminder to respond not to impulse, but to reason and virtue. Overreaction often comes from pride, fear, or a wounded ego. When insulted, it's easy to lash out. When faced with injustice, tempting to shout louder. When stressed, small irritations can erupt into storms. But the Stoics teach, the storm inside doesn't have to control the storm outside. Your response can be calm, deliberate, and strong, even when everything inside screams to do otherwise. Consider this. How many conflicts escalated because someone overreacted? How many relationships frayed over words spoken in anger or haste? How many chances were lost because composure was replaced by rashness? These are the silent costs of overreaction. To act without overreacting, you cultivate self-awareness and discipline. It begins with recognizing your triggers, the situations, words, or actions that, when something pushes your buttons, train yourself to pause. Pause to breathe. Pause to step back, mentally and physically, from the moment. This pause creates a crucial space. A space where you can choose a response, rather than simply launch a reaction. That space is your power. With practice, that pause grows longer. Your awareness sharpens. You begin to understand that sometimes the best action is no immediate action at all. Sometimes the wisest move is to listen, to wait, to hold your peace. Strength isn't always loud. Often it's silent. The strongest people don't always raise their voices. They know when to conserve energy and when to engage. The Stoics also remind us, not every battle is ours to fight. Overreacting wastes precious energy better spent on what truly matters. Wisdom lies in discernment, in choosing which battles deserve your attention and which deserve your calm absence. Moreover, acting without overreacting means embracing responsibility. When you respond with composure, you demonstrate mastery over yourself. You show that you are not a slave to circumstance, but the architect of your own life. This kind of strength builds trust in others and confidence in yourself. Imagine the transformation in your daily life if every angry outburst was replaced with measured action. If every moment of frustration met patience, every insult met with dignity, every setback met with resilience. Not only would your peace deepen, but your influence would grow. People are drawn to those who remain steady in chaos, the calm in the storm. This is the essence of Stoic action, deliberate, virtuous, and wise. So next time you feel the urge to react explosively, remember, you have a choice. You can act with intention or overreact on impulse. The path of the Stoic is clear. Choose action, choose calm, choose power. Because true mastery is not in controlling the world outside, but mastering the world inside. 10. The space between stimulus and response is freedom. There is a moment, a brief, almost imperceptible gap, between what happens to you, and how you choose to respond. There is a space between these two moments, a space so small that most people don't even notice it. Yet within that space lies the key to your freedom. The Stoics taught us that in this gap resides the power to decide your path, your peace, and ultimately, your life. Imagine the daily provocations you face. A harsh word from a colleague, a sudden change in plans, a frustrating traffic jam. Your first impulse might be to react immediately, to flare up, to complain, to let your emotions take the lead. That impulse is natural. It's primal. But it's also unconscious. And unconscious reactions often lead to regret, broken relationships, and inner turmoil. Now imagine having the ability to step into that small space, to slow your breath, calm your mind, and consciously choose your response. This space is more than time. It is awareness, a refuge where your higher self can speak, where reason can guide, where your values can lead. This is freedom, not freedom from challenges, but freedom within them. Your breath is your anchor in this space. A deep, intentional breath signals your nervous system to shift from fight or flight to calm and clarity. It widens the gap between stimulus and response. And as this gap grows, so does your power to choose. The Stoics never promised a life without hardship or provocation. What they promised was the discipline to meet those hardships with wisdom. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "External events are neither good nor bad. They are indifferent. It is our judgment of them and our response that shapes our experience." Cultivating this space takes practice. At first, it may feel impossible. Your mind races, your emotions surge, and you want to react. But with patience and repetition, you train your brain to pause, to observe the stimulus, notice the impulse, and create the gap. Over time, that gap becomes a sanctuary of peace. Living in this space means you no longer carry every insult as a wound. You don't chase every slight with anger. You don't let every inconvenience steal your calm. Instead, you engage with life thoughtfully, deliberately, and fully present. This is the essence of Stoic strength, the ability to be fully engaged in the moment without being consumed by it. To face life's storms not as a victim, but as the master of your inner world. Every time you choose the space between stimulus and response, you reclaim your power. You build resilience. You nurture peace. You affirm that no external event can control your inner state, unless you allow it. So the next time life pushes you, take a breath. Find that space. Step into your freedom. Because there, in that small gap, lies the true mastery of self and the beginning of your truest life. We spend much of our lives reacting, often unconsciously, to the endless waves of circumstance, emotion, and expectation. But true mastery lies in that sacred space between what happens and how we choose to meet it. This space is where freedom is born. The Stoics teach us that true power is not about controlling the uncontrollable outside of us, but about cultivating control within. It is the discipline to pause, to breathe, to observe, and then to respond, not to react. It is in these moments that we reclaim our peace, our purpose, and our very selves. Each no you speak without apology, each breath you take before replying, each step where you choose to pause instead of charging forward. These are not small acts. They are declarations that your life will be led by wisdom, not impulse, by clarity, not chaos, by strength, not surrender. So as you move forward, remember this: your greatest power lies in your response. Your truest freedom lives in your ability to hold space between stimulus and action, and your deepest peace is found, not in a world without challenges, but in a mind that remains calm amidst them. Live deliberately, respond thoughtfully, master yourself, because in doing so, you don't just survive life, you become the author of a life worth living.